The sun hung low over the dry Texas plain, throwing long shadows across the parched earth. Dust rose in golden clouds behind a lone rider, a man in a dark coat, his head pulled low, his jaw set like stone. His name was Colt Mercer, known across counties as the man who took land as easily as he drew breath. When the banks couldn't collect, when families refused to sell, Colt rode in with his quiet threats and cold eyes. But this time, as he approached the small, worn-out ranch by the river bend, something in his chest twisted. He had done this 100 times before, but never to a man like Samuel Dyer, a widower and a father of one daughter, Alara. Colt slowed his horse near the fence, boots scraping the ground as he dismounted. The old boards of the cabin creaked in the wind. A single candle burned inside, its flicker faint against the afternoon sun. He could hear voices, a cough, a soft prayer, and a woman's whisper. When Alara stepped out onto the porch, Colt's hand fell still at his belt. She wasn't what he expected. Her hair, loose and sun-kissed, framed a face both tired and defiant. Her dress was faded, her hands calloused from work, but her eyes, those deep, desperate eyes, could stop a man in his tracks. "You must be Mercer," she said quietly, gripping the edge of the wooden post. "You've come to take what's left of us." Colt's mouth tightened. "Just doing my job, ma'am. Your father owes more than he can pay. Bank says this and changes hands today." Inside, her father's coughing grew worse. Alara looked toward the door, then back at Colt. "We've got nothing left," she said, voice trembling. "The land barely feeds us, but he worked it all his life. It's all he's got." Colt glanced toward the fields, dry, empty, silent. No crops, no cattle, just memory and dust. He pulled a folded paper from his coat and placed it on the porch rail. "This says otherwise." Alara's fingers trembled as she touched the paper, but she didn't read it. She stepped closer instead, eyes steady now. "You'll take it anyway. Men like you always do." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of dry hay and thunder far in the distance. For a long moment, Colt said nothing. His horse stamped the dirt impatiently, and a hawk circled overhead. Finally, he spoke, softer than before. "Your father knew the terms. I can't make exceptions." Alara swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Then let it be me instead." Colt blinked. "What did you just say?" Her eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. "Take me instead," she repeated. "Spare him, and I'll go wherever you tell me. Just don't take his land. He'll die without it." The world seemed to still. Colt stared at her, the wind tugging her hair, her small shoulders trembling against the sun. There was no deceit in her eyes, only raw desperation. He had seen greed, anger, and pride before, but never love like this. Never a soul willing to trade freedom for someone else's peace. "Alara," he said finally, his voice gravelly. "You don't know what you're offering." "I do," she said, stepping closer until they were a breath apart. "I've watched him waste away trying to keep this place. If it means saving him, I'll give you whatever you want." He could have laughed. He could have turned away. But instead, he found himself lowering his gaze, feeling a strange ache bloom in his chest. The lawman in him said to finish the job. The man in him couldn't. "Your father's debt isn't something I can just forget," Colt said, looking toward the cabin door. "But I'll think on it." Alara shook her head fiercely. "No, promise me." Her voice broke as she caught his wrist, her fingers rough but trembling. "Please, Mr. Mercer, I don't care what happens to me. Just spare him." The words hit him harder than any bullet could. For the first time in years, Colt didn't know what to say. He pulled his hand free gently, eyes narrowing at the horizon where the sky was beginning to redden. "You're asking for mercy from the wrong man. Then maybe it's time you became the right one," she whispered. That night, as the sun sank and the stars crawled over the black sky, Colt sat by his fire near the edge of the property, unable to shake her voice. He thought of all the land he'd taken, all the men he'd broken, and how none of them had ever begged for themselves. Only she had begged for another. And when dawn came, with the faint sound of the rooster calling from the Dyer ranch, Colt Mercer made a decision that would change everything for her father, and for the man he had become. When dawn broke over the valley, the world was painted gold. The wind had quieted, the air cool and still after a long, restless night. Colt Mercer sat by the dying embers of his campfire, staring at the folded contract beside him. One signature, and Samuel Dyer's land would belong to the bank. That was what he was paid to do, to collect, to claim, to write on. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Alara, standing in the doorway, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Just spare him." He had been called many things in his life: bounty man, collector, thief in the name of law, but never merciful. Mercy had no place in a world like his. Yet, as the sun lifted higher, Colt found himself saddling his horse slower than usual. The sound of the cabin door creaking open pulled his gaze upward. There she was again, her dress catching the morning light, eyes red from crying but steady as ever. "You came back," she said softly, walking toward him. "I never left," Colt replied, adjusting the reins. "Had some thinking to do." Alara glanced at the paper still resting on his saddlebag. "So what did you decide?" Colt studied her a long time before answering. "Your father owes the bank $800. That debt doesn't just vanish because you asked nicely." Her lips trembled, but she stood her ground. "I told you. Take me instead." He almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because of the fire in her voice. "And what would I do with you, Miss Dyer? You think I'm the kind of man who'd take payment in flesh?" Her eyes softened. "I don't know what kind of man you are anymore, but I know you didn't come here just to take from the broken." That struck deeper than she knew. Colt turned away, scanning the lifeless fields. The fence half collapsed, the barn eaten by time. "You could leave," he muttered. "Start somewhere new." "This land is me," she said. "Every corner of it holds my mother's voice, my father's sweat, my childhood laughter. If I walk away, I lose everything that ever made me who I am." He wanted to argue, but the truth of her words silenced him. She wasn't pleading anymore. She was fighting, not for comfort, but for belonging. Inside the cabin, Samuel's coughing began again, harsher this time. Colt stepped toward the porch, hat in hand, and paused at the door. The old man lay in a worn bed, pale as ash. When his eyes flickered open, they landed on Colt. "You here to finish it?" the old man rasped. Colt hesitated, then shook his head. "Not today." Samuel managed a faint, bitter smile. "Then tomorrow?" Colt exhaled slowly. "No, not tomorrow either." Alara's eyes widened, tears glimmering. "You mean?" Colt unfolded the paper and tossed it into the fire burning in the corner of the cabin. The flames swallowed it whole. "That's gone," he said flatly. "Land stays yours." She stared at him, speechless. "Why? You could have sold it, taken your money." He looked at her father again. "Because I've been the man who takes. Maybe it's time I learn what it means to give." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the crackle of burning paper. Samuel's frail hand reached out, gripping Colt's. "You've done a good thing, son. Don't lose it." Colt nodded, jaw tightening as he stepped outside. He mounted his horse, the reins creaking in his gloves. Alara followed, standing a few feet from him, sunlight spilling over her hair. "Where will you go?" she asked. He tipped his hat, eyes scanning the horizon. "Don't know. Somewhere the wind hasn't decided to forget." She stepped closer. "You could stay, help fix the fences, mend what's broken." He looked down at her, that same strength, that same stubborn hope that had broken something open inside him. "You don't need a man like me here." "Maybe not," she whispered, "but I want the man you could become." For the first time in years, Colt smiled, small, tired, but real. He leaned forward slightly, his voice rough. "You're a dangerous woman, Alara Dyer. And you," she said softly, "are a man who finally listened." He looked away, pretending to check the horizon, but his eyes betrayed the warmth creeping into his chest. The wind carried her scent, hay, dust, and something like grace. Without another word, he turned his horse toward the rising sun. But as he rode away, something changed in his heart. For the first time since he'd drawn his first gun, Colt Mercer didn't feel like a man chasing what was owed. He felt like a man finally paying something back. Weeks later, word spread across the valley that the Dyer ranch was thriving again, that Alara had saved it. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right, folks said they could see a lone rider on the ridge above, watching over the land he once came to claim. They said he never came back, but Alara knew better. Every sunrise, she'd find a fresh horseshoe mark near the fence line, as if he still rode through the night, not to take, but to protect. Because love, she had learned, isn't something you beg for. It's something you awaken in someone who thought they'd lost the right to feel it. And Colt Mercer, the man who came to take her father's land, had found something far greater instead. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more cinematic love and Western drama stories. Your one click helps me bring more tales of sacrifice, courage, and redemption to life. Subscribe now and ride with us into the next story.